Hey folks, Azure Cosmos DB TV. Mark Brown here, and I'm joined by Sajeet here today,
Hey
and
Mark,
we're going
how's
to
it
talk
going?
about. I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Good to join you in this show.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. We haven't had many shows lately. Gotta try and fix that. I may do a bunch of solo shows just because there's just so much stuff we've done, even not stuff I'm doing as well. So I actually ship product around here. I don't just dork around on YouTube. So
Yeah,
anyway, welcome to the show. Of course, everybody's talking about AI these days, and of course, kind of one of the newest hottest things is MCP. And I think today you're going to show us what we're doing in MCP land, and we've created our own MCP toolkit. Is that what you're going to show us today?
yeah, that's right. I think it's one of the features that we launched at Ignite last year, and we are seeing a good momentum in terms of MCP space. So I will be going through that today. So this is going to be the agenda. In general, for those who are new to MCP, I will talk about what MCP is, what is the importance, and then I will introduce you to the Azure Cosmos DB MCP toolkit that we launched at Ignite. And I will also dive into key features of the MCP toolkit. Obviously, it's open source project, so anyone is welcome to contribute, and embedded within the MCP toolkit. And I will show a quick walkthrough of how it works. And it also has integration. So I will show one of the integrations with Microsoft AI Foundry. And then at the end, I will show a demo walkthrough on how you can deploy in your own environment. Finally, I can take some questions if you have anything. Yep, that's the
I'm going to ask you questions
agenda for
probably
today, Mark.
throughout. I'm probably going to just interrupt you and ask questions all throughout this show.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll try to save some for the end.
Yeah, sure. Just to get started, as you mentioned, MCP has been a buzzword over the last year. Since Anthropic announced MCP back in November 2024, any product that we come across or any features that we build has MCP servability. So this is just a playful way to show how everything is getting smarter with MCP. Earlier, you have to manually explain what a tool or system can do, but with MCP, a tool can explain themselves or directly to the AI agents. So it's not just a pen anymore. It's not an object anymore. It comes with standard way for AI to discover, understand, and also to use it. So that's the shift that MCP brings, less guesswork, and it comes with more plug and play interfaces so that AI agents can talk to each other. So if you have to see what is the exact problem that MCP solves, this is kind of analogy that I want to put. So we have come across many websites, or as a developers, we tend to build new things, right? So if you take example, booking.com, which can book hotels, right? And that part doesn't change, but what changes is that everything around it. So as soon as AI assistants like co-pilots enter the picture, suddenly the same capability need to be wired up again and again by the developer. So each AI platforms with its own way of calling tools or its own format, its own expectations, right? So the result is going to be very strategic environment. A lot of cables, a lot of adapters, and developer needs to stuck in the middle of trying to keep it all working. So every new AI app means a new integration, not because of the business logic change, it's because of the wiring and integrations that we have to do. Let's see how MCP solves this problem. It's a modern AI standard that can already do powerful things. But if you got much powerful things, it's a way of integrating them together. That's where the system gets messier, right? In the previous example that I showed. So the capability itself doesn't change, but if you have a database, it still can query. A service that you build with database can still create records, but every AI platforms expects a different way to connect, different schemas, different tool formats, different calling conventions. So MCP is just the universal adapter for AI. It introduces a standard interface or a protocol layer between AI agents and external systems. So it plays the same role that open API or a driver interface that plays in traditional software. Instead of teaching every AI client how a system works, the system describes itself once using MCP. So MCP exposes three fundamental things. First, tools. It's executable operations that AI can call, which is very similar to functions or APIs. And second, resources. It could be read or read only like schemas, files, or documentation that can provide more context. Third, the prompts. Structured instructions that can explain how tools and resources are meant to be used together. So these are the three fundamental concepts that MCP comes with. Once this contract exists, any AI can understand how MCP can connect. Or it could be chat applications, it could be copilots, or it could be CLIs or internal agents that all speak same protocol. So the internal implementation stays hidden. All the integration logic doesn't get duplicated when you want to integrate things together. So MCP servers can run locally during the development or remotely in production, but the interaction model stays identical. So that's the core part of it. This enables developers to build once and use it everywhere in the AI agentic systems. So the key outcome is not the functionality, but reduced complexity. MCP removes custom glue code, eliminates the per platform integration, so you don't have to rebuild, and turns the AI integration into a predictable or repeatable pattern. So that's the core part of MCP if I have to put in one slide. And in terms of Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit, we have been innovating in this space. We initially started with samples across different languages. So we had the Node.js, Python, .NET, and Go MCP samples so that customers can adapt. But eventually, we got customer requests to have a way to expose tools that are very specific to Cosmos DB, so that customers can deploy in their own environment, as well as it can be extended into integration. So that's why we started building our own Azure Cosmos DB MCP toolkit, which was announced at Ignite in public preview. And we have seen good momentum, and we wanted to make the AI integration easy for our end customers, as well as to add their own tools by open sourcing. So if some customers want to have monitoring capabilities, definitely you can create a PR. And if you want to have specific features, you can add in the GitHub discussions. We are open to get the feedback and then implement it. So we had MCP server across different languages, just to samples, but this MCP toolkit is the official MCP server toolkit from Azure Cosmos DB team, built with .NET. Again, it does some of the operations using the .NET SDK. It's an MCP server that empowers AI agents to interact directly into Cosmos DB using the predefined templates, and we have the security in place. So you can see some of the key features that we support. Typical control plane operations like list databases, which doesn't take any input parameter, but you can see get recent documents. If some customers want to see the latest documents got inserted, uh, they can use this tool. And then we support some of the AI capabilities like text search, vector search, and we also support approximate schema with sampling in place. Definitely, this is some of the thing that we are currently working on the backend in order to support schema inference, but right now it's more on sampling. And then you can also find document by ID and so on. So these are some of the fundamental tools that are supported with the MCP toolkit. Definitely, we're adding more and more tools based on the feedback. So that's kind of the overall intro to Azure Cosmos DB MCP toolkit. And this is the GitHub repo. Mark will be splashing it so that
Yeah.
you can navigate and explore how to build this tool. Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw that up for folks there so they can copy that on the screen there. That's cool. I like how you kind of snuck in the approximate schema stuff. So that's kind of a new feature. We haven't talked about that very much, I don't think publicly, at least not broadly yet. But I like how you guys are sneaking in cool new features that we're building into
That's right.
this.
Yeah, as I mentioned, MCP is all about building once and deploy it everywhere. Again, what are the benefits of using Azure Cosmos DB MCP toolkit? MCP toolkit, right? So these are the kind of fundamental benefits that it provides. It comes with certain resources by default. I will go through the demo so that you will be able to understand. And also it comes with visual playground. So one of the benefits that you get through this Cosmos DB MCP toolkit is that you can explore the tools that are supported through a visual interface. You can also authenticate using Entra ID, and then you can actually execute those tools and see the responses then and there. So that is one of the added advantage. Again, we support managed identity. This is one of the best practices that we enforce customers to do. So we have the Entra ID integration. So you don't have to do anything manually. This is already embedded. And then we also handle automatic errors. Like in the deployment process, if you come across any issues, we recommend guidance on how to avoid these errors and deploy the MCP toolkit successfully. And also it comes with one-click deployment template. So it has this bicep template which deploys the resources on Azure, and then you will execute certain scripts to make sure that we have all the fundamentals in place. So and then it's deployed to Azure Container Apps. Certainly, you can take this. It's containerized so that you can take the MCP tool as it is and then deploy to any of the containerized environment that you want to have it deployed on. So that's another advantage. And it also integrate with all the IDE agents. So you can configure with VS Code, you can configure with CRUD. And then you also have the integration with AI Foundry or Microsoft Foundry, which is one of the added advantage. So if you want to build custom agents, you can certainly configure Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit. I will show a demo on that as well. And again, you can do the local development environment, like local development. As I mentioned, if you find any tools that are missing, certainly go ahead and clone the repo. Use Azure Cosmos DB emulator or the Azure environment, Azure Cosmos DB portal environment in order to build new features, and then you can add those tools to MCP Toolkit. So those are kind of the fundamental benefits that it provides in customers. Just to touch upon on the integration, again, this is a key integration that we did with Microsoft Foundry. I have mentioned it at Azure AI Foundry, but recently it got renamed to Microsoft Foundry. So Microsoft Foundry is a unified platform for building and deploying and operating AI agents and applications on Azure. AI agents should focus only on thinking and deciding, not on learning how to connect to databases. So that's where the MCP plays a key role. So MCP becomes as a standard way to talk to databases so that logic doesn't live inside the agent. So in Microsoft Foundry, agent doesn't directly connect to the Cosmos DB or Postgres, or even if you take Azure SQL. Instead, each database exposes their own MCP server. In Cosmos DB side, we exposes the Azure Cosmos DB MCP toolkit. That server tells the agent what it can do by offering tools like listing databases or do a vector search and so on. From the agent's point of view, these are just tools it can call. It doesn't need to know what if the databases behind them or what how the connection works. So everything is abstracted there. And security is handled by Azure and the MCP server. As I mentioned, we use the managed identity to deploy those resources, and also Entra becomes the core component in order to authenticate. So authentication and permission stays within the platform. The agent never sees credentials or doesn't manage access rules. So this is how the endpoint agents, the database itself becomes ready for AI. So this is kind of the advantage that you have with integration with Microsoft Foundry. This is kind of the implementation. I will not dive into detail, but kind of if you want to understand how we have implemented this toolkit. So we have the interfaces or the client interfaces, where one of them is like the web browser interface that we provide to end customers. I will show a demo. And then you can use AI Foundry or Microsoft Foundry. And then we have the MCP, the ID like VS Code, Cloud, and so on. So these are kind of the client application that you can leverage in order to talk to MCP server. And then we have the MCP toolkit itself. Again, the authentication, when authentication is provided through the Intra. Again, we take the token once you authenticate and validate against the uh, core API. We pass the we create the Entra app behind the scenes that has a specific app name. We validate the app name and also the token against the Entra. and then once it authenticated, it provides, so it makes sure that that particular user has access to the MCP server, especially the toolkit, and then you will be exposed to access those tools. I will show a quick demo on this as well. And then we deploy these two resources. One is Azure Cosmos DB, and also we have the OpenAI in order to create the embeddings. Like if customers have already have these two resources, then you can configure as existing resource as well. And again, these services have the managed identity with Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit, so you don't have to do anything in special in order to make sure that the security is in place. So this architecture diagram is in with embedded within the repo itself, and also we have special um, documentation around how this like token system works. So you can go ahead and take a look at. So that's kind of the overall implementation. And yeah, uh, I will directly jump into the demo. Demo will take some time because we have a few things to show there.
Sure.
Yeah, this is kind of the overall repo which I talked about. We have the MCP toolkit, and uh, as a user, you can see like what are the prerequisites that are needed. Again, you can use emulator or Azure subscription, Azure Cosmos DB account, and if you want to have the Microsoft Foundry integration, you need to have the Microsoft Foundry, and then these are like developer defaults like Azure CLI, PowerShell, Docker in order to containerize. And there are ways to run without Docker as well, which we have documented. Yeah, what you get is basically the MCP server integration with AI Foundry, and also local development. And these are the tools that we currently support, which I have already explained. And we have the project structure on how we have implemented. The first step as a user is to deploy to Azure. So you will come to this repo and then deploy to Azure. Once you deploy to Azure, once you click on deploy to Azure, you will have to like fill the default uh, values. I'm not going to do that right now, but I have already deployed. So these are kind of the prerequisites. So you have to select the subscription resource group. And if you already have a Cosmos DB endpoint as well as a Microsoft Foundry endpoint, you can pass those. And then you need to pass the embedding deployment name and the embedding dimensions in order to do the vector search. So that's kind of the default configuration. Once you deploy this, you will see these resources deployed. So in this case, I have already had the Microsoft AI Foundry created as well as the Cosmos DB. So this deployment created a container app, which is the MCP toolkit gets deployed on, and then the container environment, which is the which has the configuration in order to make sure that MCP can talk to OpenAI as well as Cosmos DB, and by default the Cosmos DB account. Again, this is a demo, so I have the Cosmos DB account, which consists of list of vehicles which got recently published or like recent manufactured vehicles. As you can see, vehicle ID, make, model. So this is kind of the schema for this particular collection. With that, let me jump into the first client, which I talked about. Like we provide again like as an end user, you will have to once the deployment is successful, you have to apply the MCP toolkit, and you have to mention the resource groups, container app environment, and also we make sure that the client, we create the Entra app with the name Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit API, so that whenever you execute those tools, you need to have these specific rules and which matches with the value MCP tool executor rule. Otherwise, the end user will not be able to execute those tools. And yeah, you can see it. It fetches those information from the Graph API and find who is the current user. And again, this is not an error. It's just that I'm not using the latest version of the .NET SDK. But again, it fetches the source code and it containerizes the MCP toolkit, and then it's going to push that image to Azure Container Engine. And then endpoint configured. There are a bunch of things printed, and it also has the system assigned managed identity to the, and then we have the endpoint generated, which you can see for the MCP. So this is the endpoint, which, and also it prints list a bunch of things like uh, what is the Entra app client ID, tenant ID, so that you can pass those values when you authenticate, and what is the resource group, and also the Entra app role. So this is kind of the overall deployment. It might take nearly 8 to 9 minutes, depending on like the configuration that you need to have in place. Once you have this, I can go to the playground, which I mentioned. So user can log in through the client ID. So in this case, my client ID is this value. Let me copy that. And the tenant ID is this. And let me authenticate with. So you can see that I have logged in as Sajeetharan, and then the tenant, and also I have the role defined MCP tool executor. If the say after some time, if you want to refresh the token, you can refresh the token, sign out, and so on. And this is the MCP URL that get deployed, which is the actual browser address. You can see, and there are bunch of you can see what are the tools that what are the instructions that are provided through the MCP, basically the tools and also the schema. What is the input that user needs to pass, and what is the output, and what are the required parameters, and so on. So the same thing is exposed through test tools as well. So if I go to Cosmos DB tool, you can see in this case I'm going to execute say for example list database. Let me invoke the selected tool. You can see it directly went, because that doesn't need any input. I can see vehicles is one of the databases that I have, and if I have to find what are the recent documents, I can provide the container name and the database name. And once I invoke, I can see like what are the recently inserted documents. So this provides a way for end users to test and play with the MCP toolkit. And if I want to do a vector search, I can search for what are the luxury sedan option that I have. Sorry, and then it's going to do across the embedding. And then I need to retrieve type, year, and model. So yeah, these are the options that we have. It does a vector search, and it's able to pull those information by creating the embeddings from the OpenAI. So that's kind of the overall features. Again, I will not dive into each of these tools. These are self-explanatory. I think to Mark's point. So one of the option is get appropriate schema. If we need to see, okay, what is the schema that is exposed through this? What is the type of it, and it appears in 10 out of 10 sample documents. So we list that information as well. So this kind of uses sampling behind the scenes, and also tells how many documents have this field in place. So that's kind of the overall tool. And also you can again use this within VS Code, or if you want to try out curl commands, we have provided some samples. You can just copy and paste in a terminal in order to execute uh, these curl commands. So that's kind of the overall thing. The second demo that I wanted to show is the integration with a foundry. As users, you might be aware that we have this Microsoft Foundry. You can navigate to a.azure.com, which takes you to this particular page. You can start building agents, you can create workflows, you can browse your existing models. So in this case, I already created a vehicles agent in order to see what I can, what I can play with this particular agent using natural language. So you can certainly provide instructions. Again, I have a document. I mean, we have documented certain instructions as part of documentation, especially for this scenario. So you can see some of the instructions that you can find. So you can write more instructions as you want. I'm not going to write any instructions for this particular demo. And then this is a interesting part. So you have these tools, right? So uh, you can go ahead and add before that. I mean, just to showcase a Microsoft Foundry, if you go to tools, you can find n number of tools, starting from all the databases to external um, tools that we have it inside the catalog. You can filter. As you could see, Azure Cosmos DB appears as the number one tool there. And then you can also have custom MCP servers integrated with Microsoft Foundry. So in this case, let me go ahead and open my existing agent, and then you can add a new tool, so which will open up an interface. You can select a custom MCP protocol, and then you can pass the existing MCP endpoint. As I mentioned, this is the MCP endpoint that I have. You can copy this. Only thing is you need to provide MCP. Yeah, it's the name, so I can call new agent and then the MCP name /MCP, that's the endpoint. And then you need to provide Microsoft Entra as a way for authentication. And then the client audience is the Entra client. So you can pass this as audience. Once this configuration is done, uh, I have added here. So you can see the tools, again, MCP Toolkit and also the endpoint. I can come here and then start interacting with the agent. So it's going to leverage Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit here. List me the databases, or probably we can ask a direct question like get me the recent document. So you can see it talks to the MCP and then it identified, okay, what tool it has to execute. And then it, similar to how you would do it in VS Code, it asks for the right context, like list database is the right tool in this case. And then it asks me more question about a specific action. So let me ask, get me all the recently manufactured vehicles. So as a developer, I expect it's going to execute, okay, what is the database first, and then it's going to execute the recent documents, which is expected because that's what aligns with our requirement, like getting the recently manufactured vehicles. Again, I'm using GPT 4.1, and then you can have, depending on the model that you want to use, you can configure any model. Again, it's going to fetch the latest information that I have on the database. So that's kind of cool way to interact. And also you can publish this agent through any platforms like Microsoft 365 or any environment that you want to have it as an app. Again, if you want to publish as a Python application, again, you can have the way to generate this Python code, and it takes some of the input, and then you can run it as a Python application, or you can use as a JavaScript app, or you can use as a C# app. So kind of cool if you're building agents to interact with different platforms or different agents as well. So that's kind of the powerful way through the Microsoft Foundry, enabled through the Azure Cosmos DB MCP Toolkit if you want to expose specific Azure Cosmos DB features. So that concludes my demo. Mark, do you have any specific questions?
Yeah, I got a few questions there. I didn't want to step on you. A couple of questions. So the deployment for this thing deploys an Entra app as part of the toolkit deployment. Is that correct? Did you hear my question? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you repeat? It was breaking up a bit.
Yeah, sorry. So that deployment, I saw you had a client ID and tenant ID and secret. So this deployment of yours, this deploys an Entra app?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you showed two examples with the AI or sorry, Microsoft Foundry. So are they're hosting kind of the container version of this, so customers can go into AI Foundry or Microsoft Foundry and just use this out of the box if they want, right? Or they can use the custom option and integrate with their own custom Cosmos MCP server.
It's the way, and the second one is
Okay. Is
customers
there
can host.
can customers just grab the standard image and just run with that if they want, or do they need to go and build this?
Yeah, right now they have to build this and use, but yeah, if it's a ask, definitely we can provide a public image so that customers can obtain and host it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it will
that's
not
it.
take much time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's all I had. This is great. I have yet to play with this yet, but I have looked at the GitHub repo. I need to I need to carve out some time to play with this thing. I
Sure.
could definitely use this thing as part of my daily resources of stuff for doing Cosmos work. So this is great. So you guys have a GitHub repo. I'll put you got the link up there, and I'll
Thanks,
show
man.
this down in the banner here as well. So if people want to go, best place to start is the GitHub repo for you guys. And then if people have issues or other things they want to report, they can put those in the GitHub issues list. I'm guessing on your repo. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the best place to provide feedback or issues. And given it's
Yeah,
open
maybe I
source,
didn't hear.
so contributions are welcome. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then questions. So you guys got an email address here, so people can email you questions as well.
Yep.
All right, that's great. Yeah, this is fantastic. I really love this. I love that little test page. It kind of looks like the kind of Swagger docs in there. So very handy. People can go and run this, and then and get that little web interface from their container app, so they can go and test their MCP server or custom MCP server for Cosmos in there. So
Yep.
absolutely very cool stuff that we're building here for
Thanks, man.
users that want to build agentic applications and use MCP as part of that. So fantastic, man.
Thanks,
What's
Mark.
next for you? What's next for you guys?
Yeah, I think we are getting feedback from customers to make it to GA because they want to use it in production. So we are aiming to address some of the issues that customers have opened, and then we will add few more tools which are frequent asked from customers, especially on the monitoring. And then we also we also planning to publish in the AZD gallery. And yeah, after that, our aim is to go GA soon. Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. Well, maybe well, we've got build coming up in I think I don't know, sometime this spring or whatever. So maybe that'll be when we'll hear
Yeah.
about GA for our MCP toolkit. So we'll see. Stay tuned, I guess, is the word for viewers here. So go and try this out, and then put issues in there or questions either in the issues or email the team here, and we'll get you squared away. So Sajid, this is great. Thanks for coming on and sharing our brand new Cosmos MCP toolkit. This is very cool stuff.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. It's been always good to chat and share the things with community. Yeah, thanks again for the
This is
opportunity.
great stuff. So great, Sajid. Well, thanks for joining us, and thank you folks for joining us this time on Cosmos DB TV. And we'll see you all next time. See you later, everyone.